Hello and welcome to Coach Within Live. Today's topic is art. My name is Denise Nickerson and I work with Michelle Giuliano. We are the co-founders of Coach Within and Salt Consulting. The topic of art might be something that just lights you up because you're an artist, or it might be something that is abstract to you because it's not really a part of your life. You don't really have a lot of art woven into your daily experience. So let's just explore it for a few minutes and see how self-coaching and art are related and how you can integrate more art into your life. Lots of people think of visual art when art is mentioned, and specifically painting and drawing, the part of visual art that is very prevalent and museums are filled with, and sometimes our homes are filled with. And there are some basic elements of visual art that any art teacher will share with you in your first low-level art class. And starting right with that, you can do an easy self-coaching exercise. So what are those elements? The elements of visual art that form the building blocks are color, line, shape, form, and texture. And you can use these elements to help you detach from and consider any kind of problem, experience, anxiety, negative self-talk, or emotion that you're going through, and you can kind of use them in a simple self-coaching exercises. So let's take an emotion and then use these 5 parameters, color, line, shape, form, and texture, to describe your emotion in order to process and understand the emotion. So let's say you're feeling grumpy and frustrated. Well, think about what color. It's like a mini meditation. What color is my feeling? What does it have? Thick lines, thin lines? What's the outline? What shape is this emotion taking? What is the form, which is also a kind of shape, but make it more 3D in your mind? And is there a texture to this emotion? And as you're doing that, you're lighting up different parts of your brain. The emotion is no longer in the driver's seat, and you can often, especially around anger and sadness, frustration, when I've done exercises like this with clients, often you can introduce humor into the situation because you get a little monster, you get a little character, you get a personification that's exaggerated, and then you can have a conversation with the emotion, or you can send the emotion away. You can put the emotion on a boat, and when it has a shape and a color and you can see it, you can kind of send it off into the distance. Or you can give the emotion what it needs. You can wrap it up in a blanket, you can feed it, you can take it to the park, you can do all kinds of things when you give a feeling or an experience, a memory, or a negative thought, color, line, shape, form, and texture. And we have visual art to thank for that. Now back to the arts. Traditionally, there's kind of 6 arts, and that's why the French have an expression where they say cinema is the 7th art. But the truth of the matter is, in modern times, there are so many arts, I don't know that we could count them all. But if you look at the basics, the first one would be visual arts, painting and drawing, then sculpture. Those were both visual, but they were kind of divided in ancient times. Architecture, poetry and literature, music, and dance. So those were the arts in traditional times. Just think for a moment if any of those elements have played an important role in your life, in your formation, in your culture, in your education, in your hobbies, or in your identity. I'm going to say the traditional ones again. Painting and drawing is one, sculpture, architecture, poetry and literature, music, and dance. And you may not be an artist in any of those realms, but you can think throughout the history of your life how architecture has had an impact on you. I'm sure you can think of buildings where you felt a sense of awe, whether you visited as practicing a religion or certain events of your life, university time, or just as a tourist, just as an example. And we all know that in ancient times, not everybody was literate. So the transmission of information was not necessarily through reading and writing and formal lectures. And not everybody got to go to school. Not everybody was educated. So all of these things were contributing to the transmission of culture and the transmission of historical information and the transmission of knowledge. So you can kind of imagine how important that was. And we can't just rip that out of our human experience and our humanity. Now let's think of modern times and some additional arts, theater and opera. In fact, in our coaching program, Integrity Works, we really encourage people to go to the opera because everybody's so busy. And when you go to the opera, you get so many arts at once. You get singing and dancing, you get theater and great writing. You get costume design, set design, which uses elements, obviously, of drawing and painting, and sculpture as well with costume design. So if you don't have time and you feel like art is missing from your life, one way to get like a super vitamin shot of art is to just go to the opera and see how much art you can take in with your eyes and ears and body and heart, mind and soul. Additional arts that we think of in modern times, obviously photography it's just modern because it wasn't around several hundred years ago. And so now photography is such an amazing art form. And it really usurped some of that communicative role of the arts in ancient times of information transmission. But it's gone so far beyond just the representation of the real in a moment in time. There's cinematography. If you like going to the movies, then you do have more art in your life than you realized. Digital design, interior design, makeup artistry. Makeup and fashion are really very, very interesting because there's continual new expression. They're lucrative industries. And so there's motivation there for continual creation. If you notice, there's, seasons of fashion that are launched. And the fascinating thing about makeup artistry and fashion is that the limit of the human body. I mean, I guess there are people who style, dogs and color their fur and things. But generally, we're talking about the limitations of the shapes and sizes of human faces and the shapes and sizes of human bodies. And sadly, and currently, the makeup and fashion industry are quite limited in that they tend to have a preference of a specific type of human face and human body. But that diversity is entering in to those industries. And so maybe those are ways that you can incorporate artistic expression into your life. Is how do you dress? What's your fashion? What does your style say about you? Also, hairstyling, people could say that's an art. Sugar and chocolate arts, you see a lot about cakes and the beautiful things people make with desserts. That's really getting into artisanship. So, and there is a difference between being an artist and being an artisan. But we're not really talking about that today. And it doesn't really matter. If you want to bring artisanship into your life, you can have the same self-coaching benefits that you get from all of these wonderful arts. So I hope that just going over this list has you thinking about where do these arts fit into your life, either as just experiencing them as an audience member or a consumer or taking yourself through experiences, or as a creator. Obviously, if you're a growth mindset person and you're interested in self-coaching, then you're already into some positive constructivist ways of being where you're creating, you're introducing new ideas, and you're using different vehicles. And you may or may not have considered the vehicle of the arts. So one of the basic definitions of art is really illuminates how it is related to self-coaching. Art represents reality. So we know that, and historically was super important because not everybody was literate. But we also know, even when we have the best cameras in the world, the best video cameras, that different realities get represented. So we have more consciousness now about what is real, what is false news, and we can also see the way that information is consumed. So the way art is consumed is just like any other information in that it really depends on the audience and their perspective, the context within which it is being presented. Art also communicates emotions or ideas. And honestly, the modern world, our modern education, our modern way of working, we do not have a lot of vehicles for our emotions. We're starting to develop emotional intelligence and emotional mastery. People like you who are interested in self-coaching are definitely doing that, but we haven't completely integrated emotional fluency and emotional mastery into our ways of being. And so thank goodness we have these vehicles of art to allow our emotions channels for flowing in different directions. We are going to, with art, construct a sense or definition of beauty. So we collectively define what is beautiful throughout time and our responses to beauty, and they are reflected back. We reflect them back to ourselves and each other through our creation of art. That does not mean that all art is supposed to be beautiful or that all artists are working on that. Definitely, sometimes artists prefer to show things that are not so beautiful in order to evoke emotions, but it definitely is one of the ways that we come together and decide what is beautiful, what is pleasing, what delights us. Art is going to explore the nature of perception, which is so amazing because it can be entirely universal and collective or extremely individual, depending on what we're expressing and exploring. So art allows us to say, oh yes, I resonate with that perception. That's exactly what I experienced. I could never create that painting or that sculpture, but that was my experience, or that play. I really understood that. I really felt understood. And that really reminds me of this experience in my life or that memory. So exploring the nature of perception, exploring formal elements for their own sake. And remember those elements of visual art, color, line, shape, form, and texture? That can take us so many places, and it can also help us deconstruct and reconstruct. And in self-coaching, we're deconstructing and reconstructing all the time because we want to be the drivers in our lives. We want to be not just kind of buffeted about by the waves of life. We want to be going with the flow or swimming with our force and directional about what we do. So exploring elements from many perspectives, we can do that with art in ways that we cannot in any other activity. So think about movement, expressing emotion. If you've ever taken a dance class, think about what happens inside your heart, inside your emotional center when you're taking a dance class. And that's not even being an artist. You're not a choreographer. You're not necessarily practicing dance hours and hours every day and exploring new ways and pushing the limits of your body. You're just taking a Zumba class. Think about the emotions that rise up within you that if you had just stayed at your day job, would you have been feeling those emotions? But once that music is pounding and people are sweating and dancing and jumping around you, what is going on inside of you? So exploring these different elements is, it's what conscious, curious people do. And then art can also challenge norms and create alliances. So challenging norms would be to kind of exaggerate and point out things that are discordant in humanity, in society, in politics, in religion, in our familial relationships, and it creates alliances through our collective response to that. So we can collectively say, oh, this is horrible together, or we can collectively say, I'm bathing in the presence of divine beauty. We can have so many interesting experiences where we bond together or where we break expectations and create new ways and new pathways when we're dealing with art. Isn't that exciting? I hope you're getting excited right now. I really wonder what will happen after you listen to this, if you take the consideration of the importance of art, if you'll even take a step to bring a little more art into your life today. Here's a few ways why and how to do that. So art is related to self-coaching. I'm going to kind of repeat a few things, but just give you 6 ways that art and self-coaching are related. First, because of lifelong learning. So whether you're a novice or a master, lifelong learners are more alive, their neural pathways are healthier, and Honestly, when you approach a topic and decide at age 16 in a high school art class, I'm not good at this, and then you go through a couple decades of life experience and then return to it, you'll find that you have so much experience to stand on, and maybe emotional maturity and willingness to get it wrong, willingness to learn. So part of lifelong learning is to learn about what artists have done, but also to try things yourself. Creativity and innovation, practicing and experience art will light up different parts of your brain, will help you make new connections between different and disparate ideas. And boosting that creativity in one area is proven by research to give you more freedom and creativity in other areas. So if you're feeling stuck in any area of your life, whether it is your physical health, your relationship with your teenage children, or not progressing at work, getting your creative juices flowing are exactly that. Imagine like a wonderful vitamin juice shot that you take for your body. Getting your creative juices flowing in your brain gives a vitamin boost to your whole brain and your whole ability to function. So definitely a second reason to blend art and self-coaching into your life. You're going to have a fuller and richer life experience by both giving and receiving. We talk a lot about giving and receiving in the Integrity System, which is our online coaching program, and in Integrity Works. And we really drive this idea home to the point that our Integrity community members know that giving and receiving is something they can access with one breath. So when you're receiving, you're inhaling, and when you're giving, you're exhaling. And when it comes to art, your receiving is experiencing the art of others, whether it's walking around a museum, going to the theater, or listening to a song that just soothes your soul. And then that giving is creating art. What are you creating? What are you making? Are you playing a song on the piano? Are you writing a poem? Are you taking photos and creating a montage? What are you creating? So think about that giving and receiving. And this is another area to reinforce that. And that again gets reinforced at the simplest level with the breath, and at more complex levels with the receiving of your life experience and the giving of the legacy you leave when you leave this earth. So that is a place to really play with giving and receiving. The fourth way to involve art with self-coaching is thriving beyond surviving. The human experience can be so centered around surviving, getting out of crisis, staying alive, and managing stress and distress, which we have had so much of lately. But what's the point of it all? Why bother to survive? And we have to remember all of the pleasures that life can bring us and the excellence that we are here to express. We are so much more than our survival mechanisms. Really. We are so much more than scrambling for limited resources. Thriving is about expressing the best that we can be and living our best lives. And that is not only individual, it is also collective. And so when a society is really thriving, then there's also a lot of great art and architecture. And yes, the historians among you, I know you'll want to respond about the kind of exploitation of labor that was used to create the great Gothic cathedrals of Europe, for example. And that is true, but I'm speaking more about a thriving society where films are being produced, where diverse voices are heard, where music is just available so readily. And it really is to most of us in the modern world, where we can receive and access on our phones. We can access any kind of music that we want to. We can thrive beyond our wildest imagination, and we can already thrive beyond the wildest imagination of our grandparents. So it's happening at an accelerated rate, where in the past, experiencing art would have been a big deal, maybe only available to the wealthy, maybe only available to those near more urban centers. Now we can all experience all kinds of art every day, even if we only have time for a 10-minute break. So thriving beyond surviving is about the good stuff of life, and what are we doing all of this for, and what do we want to experience with our time here, and what do we want to share with one another. The fifth way that art is related to self-coaching has to do with the sacred and the holy. And this is available to all, religious or atheist. It's about connecting to something greater than yourself. Art allows us to have those alliances, whether they're collective revulsion or creative delight and collective delight in something, and connecting to something greater than ourselves. Well, this is also beyond the space-time continuum. Because haven't you ever had that moment when you were reading a great work of literature and you were suddenly with the author, resonating together, agreeing, realizing, opening, as if you were having a coffee with that person and having a conversation? Have you ever been around a stone carving that is maybe over 1,000 years old, and you can hear the chink of the stoneworker's tools, and you can imagine their vision, there it is, and it is communicating something to you. And that artist is long gone, turned to dust, but their creation is still enduring. So these are sacred moments and holy moments that we get to experience through art, through collective emotional experience, past and future. That is connecting to something greater than yourself. And that experience is very, very vital to living a full life and being fully alive. And finally, something to do with self-coaching and art, it makes everything more vibrant, colorful, and interesting, and it engages all of your senses. So this is about your vitality and being fully alive. If I haven't convinced you by now with my little commercial for art and self-coaching, then you may be a lost cause, but just in case you're still not convinced but willing to try a few things, I would like you to remember that vitamin shot about creativity. I'm going to give you 4 ways to boost your creativity based on neuroscience. They're super easy, and just pick one. Pick one. If you did one of these a week, you would be giving that vitamin boost, that metaphorical vitamin boost on creativity juices flowing through your brain and body. The first one is to engage with nature. Obviously, if you go back through history and look at the history of the arts, nature has been like the number one muse, the number one inspirer for all of art. And remember that human beings are a part of nature, and you are a part of nature too. So engage with nature in any way possible, and that will give you some of the elements you need to improve and increase the creativity in your life. Please spend a little bit of time meditating and practicing mindfulness. And if you're not really that into meditating, you're too busy, or you have a very, very busy mind, you have a hard time quieting your mind, I find that guided meditations can be very helpful. In our online program, The Integrity System, we have, I think, 13 full guided meditations, but we've tried to keep them all to 10 minutes or less because our clients are so busy, but 10 minutes is enough. There's some researchers in Zurich that found that even 2 minutes of meditation starts to change your body chemistry. So you don't have to be a master, you don't have to meditate all day, but learning about some mindfulness. And I think we have a few on our YouTube channel as well, guided meditations that you can listen to. We add a few extra ones into Integrity Works, and sometimes our Integrity Works members, our inner circle, they make special requests for a guided mindfulness based on something specific, and we've done that before as well. So do some guided meditations of any kind and practice mindfulness, and that will be one of your building blocks for more creativity in your life. Try the walk and talk, which is something, if you've noticed, if you drive a car, sometimes you might have a really wonderful conversation with somebody sitting next to you because you're both facing forward. And there has been some research about what's going on with the eyes and the brain when we're moving. And if you don't drive a car, that's fine. Walking works as well. So walking and talking with somebody can create a different result than sitting and facing them and making that eye contact. Now, if you're falling in love with somebody, of course, you're going to be sitting across that table and looking in each other's eyes. But do try to go on a walk and have a conversation, and get up from your desk. If you need to talk something out, if you need to bounce ideas off someone, just ask, can we go on a walk and talk things out? You can take turns, you can try to present ideas, you can bounce ideas off of one another, but looking forward while moving has an effect on our ability to create, and it is good for us. This is why many creatives have a notepad in their car, creatives who drive a car, because they get so many cool ideas while they're driving. Now, don't be dangerous about that. Use a red light or pull over if you need to write something down. But that is the eye movement. There's something with that. And there's even some research. This is so random because I don't remember the researchers, but you know how when you take a little child and you spin them around, even that is helping the brain to develop. So this natural, fun, playful human behavior. And so I'm adding this on. The walk and talk is really the research that I read for this talk, but spin around in your chair every once in a while and give your eyes something new to see, to get your creative juices flowing. And then this one, I was so excited about this one because this just has to do with my personal ethics, but it turns out that this will boost your creativity. Be intentional about diversity in all of its forms. So you hear Michelle and I talking about this all the time, about diversity. Diversity is not just about working with people of different ethnicities, although that is a very important thing. But being intentional about diversity spreads across. Imagine having a salad. You want diverse colors on your plate. You want diversity in your experiences. So if you're not experiencing art, you need to integrate some of that into your life and have diverse experiences. But the research about improving creativity was specifically about making sure you engage in meaningful intellectual conversations about ideas with people from different backgrounds, meaning diversity of age, diversity of culture, diversity of language, diversity of ethnicity, diversity of socioeconomic background. So if you're just kind of around only people like you, your creativity is getting stifled. So shake it up a little bit in your life. This does not mean that you have to go date a bunch of people who are different from you. I'm talking about engaging in meaningful conversation about ideas. So this has to do with actively seeking out people. If you're working on something, this is in your profession. If you're also attending conferences, get outside of your profession, meet people from other professions and get their perspectives. It can be so beneficial for creativity. Even if you're not an entrepreneur, go to an entrepreneur conference and meet a bunch of them and listen to their pitches and see what they're working on, because you will be surprised at all the ideas that will get sparked. So be intentional about diversity in your life, who you're talking to and what you're talking about, and the activities that you do. And as always, for our overachievers, if you're really into this topic, you really love art and you really love self-coaching, and you see the benefits laid out before you now of weaving these two things together, I would like you to try two different things suggested by an author called Julia Cameron. She wrote The Artist's Way. And in her book, she suggests two activities that are really, really fun and beneficial. I have done them. I've had lots of clients doing them. One of them is taking yourself on some artist dates. Artist dates are to help creative people appreciate and give themselves permission, but you don't have to be an artist to go on an artist date. She's really clear that artist dates, you need to be by yourself. I'm more open. You want to go on an artist date with one or more people, that's fine with me. But if you really do want to connect on a deeper level with art, try to take yourself on at least one artist date by yourself. And it can be anything creative. It can be going to see a photography exhibit. It can be going to see a movie by yourself. It can be going to an interior design show. But be conscious when you go on your artist date. Be sure to take notes and journal about it. Include a little coffee break with you and your notebook and your pen, where you write down what you experienced, what you saw, what you felt, and what it inspired in you. And artist dates go either way. People go on one or two of them and they're fine with that. And I have experience with many people that get addicted to them. So maybe you'll get addicted to artist dates. And then the other thing that you can try, suggested by Julia Cameron, but also suggested by actually a lot of writing teachers, is something called morning pages. The way she sets it up is you wake up and basically before you do anything else, you do kind of a brain dump and you handwrite 3 pages. We spend so much time at keyboards, and it really is good for the brain to do a little bit of handwriting. It doesn't matter what your handwriting looks like because no one's ever going to read these morning pages. And she's very much about commitment to that, where you do it morning after morning after morning, because a lot of resistance comes up. And again, this is only for overachievers if you want to do this. But sometimes people just write, I hate my morning pages, I'm not awake. And they write that for 3 pages. But after a certain number of days, that becomes very boring, and other things start to emerge. Ideas, emotional processing of dreams, to-do lists, stresses come out. It is a very, very centering process. It can feel quite vulnerable, and it can feel quite stressful sometimes. But for people who have done it, I have done it for many months at a time. When you do it and get into the flow of it, it definitely boosts creativity. It definitely boosts productivity. And it also helps you to identify as a writer. So whether or not that's part of your profession, I know so many people in the Geneva area near where we're based are not saying they're writers, not identifying consciously as writers, and then they realize how much writing they do. Emails, grant writing, summaries, reports. They're doing academic writing, research writing. They're doing all kinds of writing, and they're not consciously saying I'm a writer and treating themselves as such, and weaving in the art of writing, not just the kind of slog and the work of it. So those are 2 things you can do: artist dates and morning pages, to boost your creativity, engage with nature, meditate and practice mindfulness, try the walk and talk, and be intentional about diversity. And let us know in what creative ways are you integrating art and the arts into your life. Thank you.